Welcome to Marketing Careers Uncovered, the podcast where we explore the personal and professional development journeys of marketers from a wide range of backgrounds and industries. For our very first episode, it's great to be joined today by Sally Day, founder and director at Saltoria Marketing. So, Sally, before we wind the clock back and really get into your career, why don't you give us a little bit of an overview as to what you're doing right now?
Thank you so much. So I run a small little marketing company called Saltoria Marketing, and we support small to medium businesses. And basically, I help create kind of marketing infrastructures for companies. So companies that don't have a marketing output or a marketing team, I work with them to create kind of guidelines, tone of voice guidelines, brand guidelines, and then work towards a campaign culture. And then, basically supporting them with mentoring and strategy and that kind of thing. A little bit more information. I recently parted ways with my business partner very amicably. So now I'm running the show on my own, which is a bit scary but exciting. It's all been a good challenge, exciting, but hard work. Yes.
So how long have you been running your agency then?
So we actually don't call ourselves an agency. We're a company because we had some bad experiences with agencies in the past. So we've been going for about 3 years. So since May 2020, like the heights of lockdown, we basically got made redundant by our company, and it was very tricky to find a job at that current time. And myself and my ex-business partner just thought, let's carry on and let's keep working together, see what we can do. And we started our own company, and it actually worked really surprisingly well. Obviously, we had a lot of spare time, so we could put in lots of hours. And so it's been going since May 2020.
So are there any particular types of sectors or client types that you support?
So I don't know, people always talk about should you niche or should you keep it broad. We're very consciously wanting to work with lots of different people. So our target market was small to medium businesses that don't have a marketing output or marketing kind of team at that moment in time. But I guess we've tended to work with areas that we've, worked with beforehand. So I've always worked with kind of education, universities, charities. That's always been my area of career, kind of path. And that's kind of tended to be where we've worked.
So you really just dived into this head first, which is absolutely great. Speaking to quite a few people and, known a couple who own their own business, there's often, before people go into this, quite a glamorized view associated with owning your own business, the whole being your own boss, and then actually the day-to-day reality of what it means to be responsible for running a functioning, profitable business. What was your experience like?
That's a really good question. And I do think, especially like films and TV shows give you a certain perception of being your own boss or having your own business being kind of really cool and really exciting. And potentially, the reality is quite different. I think actually in a positive way, I thought it was going to be impossible. Like we kind of did it with a bit of a we've got nothing to lose. It's lockdown. We had a good redundancy package. We thought, let's try it. If it doesn't work out, we'll just try and get another job. And actually, it wasn't impossible. And that was a surprise to ourselves. So I think it's definitely mega hard work, but I did think it would be a lot of hard work. And I did expect that, but it worked better than I thought, if that makes sense. I think there's a certain unpredictability of it that is sometimes exciting, but sometimes scary. So the kind of nature of always trying to get work, or, you could at any moment, a client could cancel on you. That unpredictability is something maybe I didn't predict, but is sometimes exciting at the same time. And I guess, there are loads of benefits. Like, you can do your own thing. You can be creative. You can be as flexible as you want. You can, do exactly what you want with your brand, be the master of your own fate, all those kind of things. It's actually, there's so many benefits that I actually don't think I realised. So it's a positive thing. Yeah.
And at that point of deciding that, this is something I want to do, did you have a existing network of contacts that you initially went out to, or was it sort of quite a cold entry into the market?
Yeah, that's a good question. I guess I had, I've always been very good at keeping in touch with old colleagues, old bosses, and people I've worked with before. I think it's always good practice to kind of leave a place positively. And I've always just kind of been good at guess, doing courses or doing like networking. So I had quite a good network already of people on LinkedIn and people I've kept in touch with. I did do quite a lot of, this was quite hard in lockdown, but lots of like business networking. We did lots of online stuff where I met lots of new people and people that could give us advice and kind of lessons learned. Quite a lot of people did end up working with were ex-colleagues though, and people I previously worked with, or old bosses that have referred me to places. And then actually where our head office, everyone got made redundant in our head office, everyone got new jobs. So kind of crazily, it was exciting because we had all these new companies that we had connections at. So it was all quite organic, I guess. Yeah.
Yeah, you never know where people are going to end up. So yeah, absolutely right. That fostering those relationships over a long term is really, really, really important. And I think can sometimes get a little bit lost, particularly. Yeah, I know from my own experience, quite early on in my career, I probably wasn't thinking in that way about actually. Yeah, these are people that are quite good to keep close to, either from a mentoring perspective or from a further down the line where they might well be.
Yeah. Yeah. I don't know if it was like my dad maybe gave me a bit of advice, like never leave a job in a negative way, and always, I don't know, I just think always forge good, positive relationships, even if you might change your mind about a job or you decide to move on. I think it's always good to leave in a positive way. Like I had a job where I was there for like 9 months. It was a contract job, and my old boss from that job like literally still refers me to new companies, and that's quite a small part of my career, but I still get referrals from them. So I think just making a good impression really helps.
So, given that we're focused on talking about people's career journeys, I want to wind the clock now, way, 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 way back. And actually, it'd be really interesting to discuss with you what brought you into marketing. What was your route? You went to university, didn't you?
Yes, yeah.
What did you study?
So I studied English with creative writing, actually. So that was like back in the day before it was very expensive. I just chose my favourite subject, and it was just kind of like, that'll be really cool and it'll be fun to live in a different place. And that was really my plan. That was all it was.
So there was no, I quite fancy this this marketing business. This looks right for me, and that was a route. It was as straightforward as I like English. I like writing.
It was just very much I like English, I like writing, and I guess I really wanted to ideally become a writer, ideally do something creative, but it was very much just like I just want to live out of town and have a nice time for 3 years, and I love reading and I love literature. It was that simple. So I hadn't really thought past, graduating really. So.
And then once you graduated, what sort of happened then?
So I did actually work at a small little marketing agency locally during summers. So I managed to get the same summer job every year when I came home. You have about 4 months off in summer when you're at uni. So I worked at a little marketing agency. They called themselves a word of mouth marketing agency. It was quite a big thing back 15 years ago. It was innovative. And yeah, I guess I kind of saw that's a good way to get paid to be creative and like be, doing a job where you're creative, but also, actually thinking about companies and like being a bit more creative. And then I'm based in Oxford. I thought, actually, I did English. Let's get into publishing. So I moved back home to Oxfordshire, and I thought publishing would be a really great route as an English student. And then every time I was looking at different job descriptions and different things, the marketing job specs just spoke to me more than others. And I just saw, a bit of writing, a bit of design, a bit of creativity. That seemed to speak to me more so. So basically, I just thought that seemed the most appealing, and I got a job at academic publishers in the marketing team.
So it was the creative aspect that spoke to you and kept playing. No matter how many times you might have tried to escape, it kept coming for you.
Yeah, and I think the diversity and the variety that a marketing role. Like I've always been a generalist, and I really like the the variety of doing like 100 different things and being extremely organized. I think I'm naturally a very organized, very structured person, so I think that kind of spoke to me as well. And managing campaigns is really exciting, and yeah, it felt like a good fit for me at that moment in time. And I think marketing teams are always quite sociable as well, and I was very good at making friends and almost wanted to carry on that kind of university, kind of environment for a bit longer. Yeah.
And as you started to get more and more into marketing, did you find that, since coming out of university and taking those steps into those first roles, did you find the reality of marketing actually matching the expectations that you might have had in your head,
Mm.
or was it quite different?
Yeah, I guess again, everyone kind of reverts to like the films and the TV programs where you think everyone's in their like power suits and power dresses and everything's very dramatic, or you have to do lots of presentations or pitch your work. It was a lot more kind of down to earth than that, and a lot more relaxed than I imagined it to be. It was still quite a very professional environment, but it felt like everyone was really looking out for you. It wasn't as like competitive and fierce as potentially I thought it might be. It was quite a very wholesome environment. I would say I was there for about 5 years, and it was a really good training ground. So they were very good at kind of supporting graduates, and I did my first CIM qualification and got promoted a couple of times. So it felt like a very good environment to be in to start my career, and people were very encouraging. Um, you learn from older people that have been there for a while, and people were very open. I think that was really positive and a good place to be.
And was that whole, developing and learning from people, was that something that was quite conscious in your mind as you started to take those steps up, or did it just happen as a result of of your environment?
Yeah, that's a really interesting question. Yeah, I think I'm naturally always quite keen. I've always been like very academic, and I loved school. I loved university. I've always been keen to learn and better myself and improve. And I've always had certain ambitions to be the best I can be. I think there probably were people in my department that were more proactive and potentially more competitive, and I did feel a bit overwhelmed by some of it. But I think at the same sense, it was good to have that drive and that general culture to push yourself, because when you start your career, it's quite, you don't know where to begin, and there's lots of different things going on. So it did give me the structure and the drive that I think I needed at that moment in time as a 21-year-old, 22-year-old. Um,
I think I'd say particularly if you're joining as a generalist as well,
mm,
because we all know that there's various different routes and directions. When you say the word marketing as a career, actually there's about 20 different ways in which one can cut and
yeah,
take that.
definitely. Yeah, yeah, yeah. I think it was a good start to my career, and actually, yeah, it gave me the structure that I needed in terms of what do I want to do. And I did definitely decide that I wanted to continue to be a generalist, and the variety was really appealing. And I really liked managing campaigns, but also managing people. So it was a really good opportunity to get loads of experience in a short space of time.
Given the way we are now in terms of hybrid and remote working and the whole blended nature of us not all sat in a space together all the time. If you were picking up and starting your career now, do you think you'd have to have a much more focused view of, actually, this is what I need and how I need to approach my development, when development by osmosis isn't really quite going to work in the current context? Would
Mm,
you agree?
yeah, I guess yeah, it's hard because retrospectively it kind of worked out quite well for me. But I didn't have a set plan, and I didn't decide this is what I'm going to do this year or whatever. I think yeah, potentially people in that position nowadays would maybe want to be a bit more objective focused, to think about what they want to get out of it, what their benefits are from working at a certain place, what kind of sector would you want to work at. I think I just kind of went with it, but yeah, potentially I could have done things a bit differently.
Yeah, and even when it comes to things like building relationships with people, I've certainly noticed there can be a tendency, particularly given the COVID years,
Mm.
as we'll call them. Yeah, there can be a tendency for interactions to become more and more transactional, and it requires just a lot more conscious effort to go. Actually, I'm going to check in with John or Alice, and keep and keep that relationship going
Yeah.
in a way that isn't just purely about me, my role, and what you can do for me and what I can do
Yes.
for
Yeah.
you.
Yeah. I think I've definitely noticed that. I guess the conversations you miss, the kind of organic chats by the office cooler or as you're making coffee or in passing, they actually are kind of quite exciting, and sometimes you get the most ideas from that, or you get, I don't know, interesting perspectives. So I do try and add a bit of small talk to conversations when I can, so that it doesn't become too transactional. Or even just ringing someone and going, "How are you?" with no agenda, and it doesn't have to be like, what's the purpose of what we're doing here, or what we're going to get out of this. Building kind of long-term relationships, I think, in the new hybrid world or online world is, trying to be as genuine as you can is very important.
Yeah, because I've never quite bought this whole, those sort of innocuous water cooler conversations, as we call them, being the reason to go right. Everyone, get your asses back in the office. It just means we've got to think about and approach things a little bit differently than we might have done or not even thought about
Yeah, I think that
before.
is definitely the part that we're missing. But I think you're right. It doesn't mean we have to just all suddenly work 5 days a week in office in the hope that we might have these spontaneous chats. I think actually we can choreograph it in a different way so that we have room to brainstorm or be kind of, I don't know, reactive to things in our own way.
So invariably, what happens as you develop, move upwards, get promoted, etc., you start to enter and inhabit this quite strange zone where there's greater ownership and accountability for what you're doing and delivering. So it requires you to think in a much, much more considered, strategic manner. But you're also sitting at that tactical end of the equation, just needing to get stuff done and manage that to-do list. It's quite a difficult balance to get right. And how did you find that?
I think I was in that space for maybe longer than potentially a lot of other people, where I was really bridging the gap between very tactical roles and strategic roles and potentially doing more of them than I should have. And it is a hard leap to make in terms of you want to still know what you're doing in terms of marketing tactics and keeping note of trends and knowledge, but you become more senior, more strategic, and actually doing both those things at the same time can be tricky. I had like a couple of roles where I was the only marketer and I was in a very operational team, and this felt quite challenging and overwhelming. Um, and I think, you kind of realize you need to keep your knowledge going. So you need to do courses, you need to, I don't know, work with companies like the CIM to go to events and networking. Um, Always be like really keen to learn as much as you can. And I think then you become better at kind of juggling everything and working out where you sit best.
I suppose it's also a piece of knowing your audience and who
Mm.
you're talking to and what level to pitch the information that you're trying to provide or input you're trying to get as
Yeah,
well.
do you mean like in an internal sense, like talking to people? Yeah.
Yeah. So
Mm.
yeah, if you're talking to the sales director,
Yes. Yeah.
for example, banging on about the amount of LinkedIn
Yes.
followers or
Mm.
impressions a particular post had, it's just going to be completely lost on somebody who's
Yeah,
actually
no, you're totally
looking
right.
for that commercial
Yeah,
link.
and I do actually think I've got very good at, I don't know how you describe this, but kind of tailoring my message to the internal person to whatever they needed to hear. So you're right. Not everyone needed all that information or all the stats, but what does that person need to continue their job or to be energized or excited by marketing or kind of educated about marketing? And I was very, I don't know, throughout my career I felt like I was really good at managing up and getting the bosses to do what I wanted them to do, and making it feel like it was their decision, that kind of thing. I think the art of kind of communication is something all marketers need to think about and focus on, definitely.
Yeah, it's a very, very underrated skill. I know I've
Mhm.
certainly over the years fluffed it up a couple of
Yeah,
times,
yeah,
and
it's hard. Yeah, I've actually said a couple of times I think my communication skills are more powerful than my marketing skills. I think I probably am a better communicator than I am a marketer, and I don't know if that's a good thing, but I think, yeah, if you're really diplomatic, if you're fair, if you're good with people, that'll help you a long way in your marketing career and in any career, I think.
Well, I've often thought myself that marketing is 70% project
Mm.
management and herding sheep, and actually, the rest is delivering as well.
Yes. Yeah, yeah, definitely. Absolutely. That's a good analogy.
So you spent quite a while in
Yes.
publishing. Once, and you mentioned you had a couple of promotions there. What was the next role that you took after moving on? What was the spark for you to move on? Really?
Yeah, so I actually so I was living in Oxfordshire and I decided to move to London, and the bright lights of London was exciting, and I got a role in like an educational company, but it was a contract role. And then actually I moved on from there about 9 months later and I worked at a university, the University of Arts London. Um, so I had, yeah, about 4 roles whilst I was in London for about 7 years. Two of them were quite short roles, two of them were quite chunky. Um, but yeah, I guess I kind of moved on from each job because I wanted to get more experience, to get more confidence, and be a bit more strategic and become a bit more focused on people management as well. Because I really enjoyed people management. Um, and yeah, I think it all just kind of naturally happened from my research and kind of finding things. And there was never necessarily like a strategic plan in terms of my career trajectory, but it all just kind of happened, I guess.
There was always, I'm certainly getting a sense that there was always, it was a purposeful step.
Yeah.
Even though there was no grand plan, there was if I'm going to make a step, it needs to either be bigger or better or give me more
Yes.
responsibility. There wasn't really so much of a sideways move or moving just because, I don't like it here anymore, off I go.
Yeah. Yeah. Like I think my first role was a sideways move, but it was more like I need to get to London, get going. And then after that, it was like, yeah, I want more autonomy. I want to be doing more things on my own. And then after that, it was like, yeah, I want to manage more people. And then, yeah, things just, you kind of think, I want to be more strategic, and you don't get a certain need from a certain job. And, there's always a variety of reasons that you move on. Um, but yeah, it was always trying to improve my knowledge, improve my kind of marketing, and to become more well rounded as a manager as well.
In terms of managing people and teams and stuff, that can be quite a big leap
Yeah, yeah.
in it
Mm.
in itself as well. I remember my own experience incredibly vividly of I think again it was another one of those expectation and reality,
Mm,
and
mm.
the fact that you can work with lots of people sometimes who, well, yeah, I think of swans quite a lot, making it look really really graceful and easy, and then when you actually make that leap and do it yourself, you realize, shit, this is hard.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. And I think you get that a lot in your career, don't you? Where potentially being a young person, keen and enthusiastic, you go, yeah, I can do anything. Yeah, and that confidence is good, but naivety sometimes isn't. You just think you can get away with things or do things in a certain way, but actually managing someone is quite a big responsibility. If you think you're their point of call for anything professionally, even sometimes personally, and you're the backbone in terms of helping them be a professional, it is quite a responsibility. Um, but I don't know, I really enjoy personal development and mentoring people, coaching people, and helping them again with that more kind of personable side as well.
I guess this that can sometimes be the assumption that that's a linear route. If you
Yeah,
want to
yeah.
progress in marketing, you start out as a junior employee, you start being a manager, you take on responsibility for people, and but actually, if that's for some people
Yeah, I think it
that's not your bag,
is.
then that's fine.
Yeah,
There are other routes you can
mm,
take.
absolutely. And it is, I have seen interestingly, like, yeah, certain people are just really talented or exceptional at what they do. So, like, by default, they're awarded with like managing people, but it's actually takes away from what they're doing. And like, they just want to carry on doing the practical work or the tactical work. And it's kind of a weird reward for being an expert to manage people if that isn't your bag. Like, I really enjoy doing this and I really love doing, but I do know that some people don't like doing it. And potentially there should be in companies, like I don't know, a technical manager and then a people manager. I don't know if you call it that, but someone that's a specialist to help you with your actual skill set, and then someone to help you as a people manager. you know, and I do know friends that have had that in companies that are maybe a bit bigger, where they've had like a separate manager for each thing. Um, and potentially that's a new way of thinking, but I think not everyone can be a manager.
No, certainly not a people
Yeah,
manager
yeah,
for
exactly. Yeah.
sure.
Mm.
What I certainly would have benefited from my first time round might have been, some quite specific mentoring or guidance around what that actually means, and preparing me for that step forward into that particular
Yeah, it
stage.
is quite a leap. And I think especially when you're quite young and you might not have done it before, to suddenly like manage someone can be quite intimidating. And I think it is quite a big responsibility. So I think getting as much support as you can at those stages is really important.
The next sort of piece I'm quite keen to dive into a little bit more is, I think, during that period you were talking about, where you were balancing the checkbook of, being more strategic and being more tactical in that space you inhabited. What were some of the really the biggest challenges that you faced during that period? Were the moments where you went, oh, I feel stuck here.
Yeah.
How do I break this bit?
Mm. I think it is, yeah, it is really hard when you're a generalist, especially. I think that I've had, and I know lots of kind of similar colleagues have had it, where you feel, oh, I kind of know a little bit about everything, but do I know enough? And then you feel potentially like you're not doing enough or you don't know enough. And it can be really hard to get over that kind of confidence, or I don't know, the kind of lack of knowledge about everything is okay. So I think some of that is about being really clear around, this is what I can do, this is what I can't do, this is where I might need to outsource, this is where I might need to get a colleague to support me. But then also having the confidence to know that that's okay. And you can't possibly be like a web developer, designer, an SEO specialist, and that isn't what you're here to do. And I think potentially when I was younger, I don't know, or early in my career, I did try to be an expert at everything, and it just burnt me out and got me overwhelmed, and I just couldn't be that person. Um, and I think a couple of roles I had, I was like the only marketing person, and I did have lots of lovely people to support me, but I was the only expert in marketing, and low budgets, not many people to support you. It was really tough, and I think you do need to work out sometimes what your priorities are, to know that you can't do everything. You aren't a superhuman. It's okay to not do everything and to not be an expert in everything.
I think we're coming back to that key word of communication here,
Mm.
aren't we? In terms of discussing as expectations what you can and can't can't do, what's within the realms of possibility now,
Yeah,
and actually keeping stakeholders in the loop.
yeah, yeah, definitely. And I think just being really transparent and clear. I think it's really hard in any job actually to you're not going to know everything, and sometimes you don't know what you don't know. So there's areas of just complete grey areas, but just being really transparent and clear about what your weaknesses are, what you're really good at, and using the team to the best of your ability to support you and dedicate to if you can.
Yeah, and it's okay to say, actually, I don't know how to. I don't know about this that much. I'll go and find out, or we might need to get some additional help
Yeah,
here.
yeah.
But
Mm.
but I totally get that. There can be this overriding sensibility of, I want to be helpful
Yes,
and
yeah.
useful and a key resource. So
Mm.
yes, yes, yes. Of course, I can do this and that and everything.
Yeah.
And
I think being like a people pleaser naturally, I've always been like, yes, yes, and wanted to help. And feeling useful is like my constant drive in every part of my life. So you don't want to displease people or disappoint people. And especially working in fast paced environments, you know it's kind of urgent and things need to be done. But, I think as I've progressed and got more experience, I've realised, sometimes it is more efficient to go, that's not my bag, or there's someone else that needs to help me. But it was quite a harsh learning curve, I think, to get to that point. Um,
you still have to check yourself from time to time, going, actually, Sally, no, you possibly don't know quite so much about that as you might like to admit.
yeah, yeah. And sometimes I'm like, oh God, do I know anything? Like increasingly it becomes I don't know enough because, marketing's moving so fast and there's so much going on. And it could be a full-time job to be constantly absorbing the knowledge and understanding what's happening. And I think you need to know your place. So I know that I'm, more strategic, and I'm more about overseeing, and I'm more about managing and coordinating, people like freelancers or more specialist people. And actually, I'm really good at the organisation piece and the bigger picture stuff. And yeah, I think you need to kind of remember what you're good at, and remember you can't be good at everything, but what you're good at is amazing. And, you are employable, you are, a good person to work with, etc.
It's some of that ability to be able to step back and look at that bigger picture. Do you think that's a result of some of that grounding you had within your publishing role, where you mentioned you did a CIM qualification and you had access to quite a few different senior
Yeah.
people within the firm?
Yeah, no, I think that was, yeah, like looking back, it was really a really great experience. And I remember at the time being like, I spent a little bit of time living with my parents, and I lived with some friends locally, but I was very much like, I need to get to the big city of London, and thinking that everything would be amazing in London. But now, retrospectively, that was probably like one of the best times of my career, because it was so supportive. Everyone was so nice and genuine. And yeah, I could just talk to anyone and get advice, and people were really keen to help you learn. And, I was fortunate enough to get the first, I've done 2 CIM qualifications, but yeah, it was all paid for with the company. And I think learning about marketing theory and the kind of marketing frameworks and structures in that environment was really good. I think if I was going to go to like some fast paced, big, vibrant London company, it would have been quite overwhelming. But I think doing the qualifications and learning a lot of the theory in that very comfortable, wholesome environment set me up quite well, I think.
Well, and given we talk about marketing is changing so much, I I don't think that actually the fundamental principles and theory changed that
Yeah,
much. If at all, so you've always got that sort of safe harbor and anchor to come back to go, well, actually, if you're in danger of veering off in a completely bonkers direction, you can always come straight back and go, well, actually, given my segmentation, targeting, positioning, or however you want to
yeah,
put it
yeah.
up, you've got that. You've got that space in which to pull back
Yes,
and do that.
definitely. I think that theory, or all that is kind of marketing frameworks that we all know, is really important. And I think if you miss that out on your kind of marketing career trajectory, I think it can be quite hard to like retrospectively learn. I think it's a really good thing to learn as soon as you can. And to have that space to be able to do that is really important, I think, as a manager or as an employer.
And keep bringing colleagues, particularly non-marketing colleagues, back to that
Yeah,
as well.
yeah.
Because I've noticed working with and I'm sure you've seen some of this as well, where there's this overwhelming tendency to jump to the tactic of,
Yeah.
want to run this
Yeah,
event,
yeah,
or
yeah.
we should have a Snapchat account. That's me showing my age now by using Snapchat
Yes.
as a as an example. But you get the point of there's always that tendency to leap to the fun shiny
Yeah,
things that I
totally.
can touch and feel
Mm.
and show, and not
And sometimes we
this is
get
actually fundamental
obsessed with
stuff.
like the to-do list of like, this is what I need to do. These are the bunch of things I need to, create, and then everything will be okay. Whereas actually, yeah, you need to think about why you're doing that, the purpose, and like, are you actually targeting the right people? Could you do less things and get more outcomes, rather than just being reactive and quick?
What happens if you don't do something? Does anyone A notice, B care, and does a fire break
Yeah,
out?
I think a lot of things are done on assumption, as all this has always been done. And actually, yeah, as marketers, we're there to challenge and kind of have those conversations where, let's be experimental, let's try something different, let's think about the return on effort as well as the return on investment. I think that's very important.
So, with the benefit of years of experience, lots of different roles. Actually, yeah, if you were to hop back into that time machine and drop yourself off before you entered that first role, is there any particular guidance with the benefit of hindsight that you'd give to your earlier self?
Yes. Yeah, it's a really good question. I think we don't ask these things enough, do we? It's a good thing to think about. I would say, especially for someone else who might be starting their marketing career now, don't be afraid to experiment in your early years. I think, I comfortably went into the generalist role quite easily because that felt natural, but easily I could have wanted to specialize in a certain area. And I think it's really easy to get caught up in the professional ladder of promotions and like where I should be going. But actually think about what you could do, spend some time, what brings you joy, and also what are you good at. Um, I would also say don't be afraid. We've said this a little bit before, but don't be afraid to kind of admit when you don't know something. You can't be an expert in everything. I think that's a really important thing to learn. Also, if your manager isn't a marketing person or a specialist, where I've had that in quite a few roles, I think it's really important to find a mentor, either internally or externally, that can give you that kind of industry knowledge and advice, just to give a bit more breadth to what you're doing so you don't feel like you're completely isolated. I know that the CIM, for example, they have like a mentoring program. So if you don't have anyone in your organization or your department or team, there are external sources you can get that support.
And sort of, thinking about marketing as a wider profession, do you think that marketers generally are, developed and rounded enough to be able to have that grounding?
Yeah, I think I've met lots of junior marketers and marketers at different stages of their career, and I think what sets apart certain individuals, I think, is having that the marketing theory approach. So I think it's important to learn a certain amount of that marketing theory before you grow or move up as a marketer. And like, obviously, the tactical elements are really important to learn, but there's no substitute for that strategic knowledge. So I would always make sure you're kind of reading up on marketing theory and marketing strategy. I think there's sometimes an urgency with junior marketers where you think you have to be the best or like know about all the trends or all the cool social media stuff, but it's okay to take your time. There isn't a rush to the finish line. Whilst tech and the social media, is moving rapidly, I think you can sometimes take your time and stay put for a bit. It's easy to get caught up in the excitement and the rapid movement of the sector.
Yeah, I mean, I always prefer better as opposed to faster.
Yeah, that's a good one. Yeah. And you also don't have to always you don't have to know everything. It's impossible. So I think when you kind of take that step back, sometimes you realize actually it's okay to not know everything. It's okay to be excited by certain things, but you don't always have to know all there is to know.
Now, my last question for today
Yes.
is quite a big one, but what's next for you?
Oh yeah. That's a big question. Um, so I mentioned briefly at the beginning. So me and my business partner, we were working together for about 3 years, and we recently parted ways amicably. She's moved back to Italy, and I'm currently evolving and repositioning Saltoria Marketing to be a bit more focused on the areas that I'm super keen and super passionate about and I'm good at. Um, Going back to that kind of like stuff that I don't know. I've never run a Google advert campaign or Facebook ad campaigns. There's certain bits that I can't do that my previous business partner could do. So I'm repositioning to focus more on strategy and content. I love copywriting and more on like workshops and face-to-face training. So rather than what the marketing team would do everything, I've realised it's important to do, what brings you joy and what you're truly passionate about. Um, and actually, I know everyone says you should be authentic, and that's a really overused term. I just think it's really true because I think it's about being genuine and sticking to what you love. And actually, now I own my own company, I'm like, well, why am I doing all these things that I think I should do? Whereas actually, I think the passion and the kind of like the actual excitement which I'll bring to my clients will be better bought with the things that I'm good at and I'm keen on. So a slight repositioning, but hopefully it will still be very successful and exciting. Yeah.
Well, we look forward to watching that all unfold over the months and years to
Thank
come.
you. Thank you so much.
Thanks for
Thank you,
joining.
Dave. Thank you.